Dynasty Warriors, also known as Sangaku Muso or Peasant Slaughter Simulator, or in case you're fluent in ancient Windows script, Winding Road, Mercury, Sun, check, question, Railroad, Jupiter, check, cross, Batsu, Ego, circling, boat, 2 lines crossed, QM, is my favorite racing game where your only opponent is notifications. To this day, I still remember how engrossed I was in battling through hordes of enemies with this cow dude.
Cow will penetrate enemy lines from the east.
That's how I pronounced his name back then. Maybe my inner Japanese was telling me that it's something about his cow, which makes sense considering his two-faced nature. But, if we're being nitpicky sonologists here, it's pronounced ta. That's a Northern England variant. It was only later that I figured out that he was kind of a slaughtery, superstitious coward hungry for power with little to no ideals. But hey, look at escape, thought little me. It always felt somewhat unreal and dull. You single-handedly cut thousands and thousands of poor Chinese peasants down and get praised for smashing that one button even on highest difficulty with battles following the same pattern over and over again. You get this feeling because this whole thing is based on real history, the same way your Call of Duty or Battlefield games are. But if you consider the fact that these people absorb cosmic energies just like that, it might start to seem like it's not that much of a stretch. So you had this sort of an immersion issue because of that, don't get me wrong. It feels great to this day, even if mechanically wise, this game is as bland as my sense of humor, but this overpowered feeling to me always felt out of place. You mash that X, and occasionally hit that Y button to spice things up, and get your eye candy as a reward, with numbers going up and enemies going down just like that. Then use your Musou Rambu, or simply Musou, meaning unparalleled or the best attack, at which point the enemies are always like,
"Prepare to be blown away! Blow me away! Here we go!"
and then you just walk for like 5 seconds and...
Welcome back, Commander.
Would you look at that, a new challenger appears. Now, you add one piece to this formula. Mind you, a franchise where episodes are titled 10 versus 100,000, and boom! Now you got in your hands one of the best One Punch Man simulators ever. Though, to be honest, there is not that much competition going on there. But it feels authentic, and it's like they were meant for each other. So you might imagine my reaction when I saw that One Piece Kaizoku Musou 3 on Steam, and I was like, what? There's 3 of these things already? It was an insta-buy kind of a situation, and I purchased it without a second thought. Little did I know. Imagine going through almost every single episode of One Piece, meticulously reproduced with those heads all over the place. It is hilarious and laughable at the same time. And this should tell you a lot. I still played the hell out of this game. I loved everything, honestly. The combat, the characters, the amount of love poured into this thing. It is palpable. Sanji, for example, true to the original, can't hit female opponents, forcing you to run around charging your Musou attack, because that's the only thing that will somehow damage them. So if you follow the same logic, you might guess that Hancock would not lay a finger on Luffy, right? Wrong. She kicks the shit out of Luffy. Out of his relatives, and even has the goal to say this afterwards. So, you bet I had high hopes for them fixing those floating heads in One Piece Kaizoku Musou 4, and when I heard that this game was coming out at the same time with big boys like Doom and Final Fantasy VII, I knew these guys are not fucking around. So instead of chasing all of that hype, I decided to play some good old Pirate Warriors. Little did I know. Who am I kidding? You've already seen the footage. No big reveal for you this time. At least as far as floating head variables go. But they cut like 2/3 of the story, and they came up with different controls that clutter user interface. I'm looking at you, you cross-shaped abomination. Previously, most of these were available just as easy to input follow-up attacks. Remember that Y button you can press in the middle of a big combo to enter a different attack pattern? That's the follow-up attacks I'm talking about. A bunch of voiceovers got re-recorded for some reason, probably licensing. The most glaring example being Robin, whose classic lines now sound different despite the fact that it's the same voiceover actress. And there is like zero post-processing now applied to it in most cases, which leads to a completely different sound sometimes. I'm going to show you a huge spoiler for One Piece. It is the defining scene for this character. So hit the skip button, will ya? You had your chance. I think just by hearing it, you can clearly spot the difference. Oh, so they just reused the sound then. You said it, Robin. You said it. Yeah, you can't even compare these two. A good example of how post-processing goes a long way to deliver a phrase. No! And the second huge example is...
I doubt you could even imagine it. That which commanded the earth, given destruction its fullest brilliance. Wide bit! Oh, wide bit! Shot by someone. Oh, someone. Don't tell me you can't hear it. Two characters within the same dramatic scene speak with the same voice.
久しぶりだな、白ひげ。バカズーが。なぜお前が白ひげをかばう？小僧、その麦わら帽子。
For some reason, fully pre-recorded character with a fixed set of lines got this new voice, and it does not live up to its predecessor. Whitebeard now is voiced by the same guy who did Crocodile. And the best thing about it is the fact that they both participate in a conversation that to an unprepared mind might sound like one of them is having an inner monologue. And here's something for a dessert. Or should I say, desert. You probably didn't notice, but I switched the audio files. And I'm not blaming the voiceover actor here, of course. I'm blaming the decision-making process. If the already available voiceover data was not enough to cover certain actions, just hire another actor with enough individuality. Now you might be wondering, what is this exclamation mark I've been staring at for 16 seconds and 12 frames already? And the answer is, if Friendship Power had an orgasm, that's what it would look like. So in previous installment, in addition to your usual KOs, you had this exclamation mark counter. It registered your KOs done during your rage mode, or KOs done with the help of the character you're teaming up with, who will segue their way into your finishes once your Kizuna level reaches 2. And it also had its own version of Musou. The original name for this is Kizuna Rush. I just call it the Screen Cleaner, or Kizuna Rush Musou. So for Pirate Warriors 4, I suppose during one of those design meetings, they were like, look at this. Now what if we did this? And everyone's like,
no, stop clapping!
So I can't help but feel like
everything's different now.
But the thing is, the gameplay loop is still there to a certain extent, and it is good enough. It is a decent game. Now, onto the things that could be improved. The sound, notifications, and box. Just listen. They just don't stop. They are all over the place. There's too much auditory information being dumped on the player. I, for one, want to mute them and hide them almost immediately. You end up with this cacophony of NPCs shouting, "Come at me, bro, ora 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 ora" style. Or orators, as I call them. NPCs shouting that you kick their ass. Sounds that your attacks make. Musou and other attack-based catchphrases. Special state trigger notifications. And story-based quotes and notifications. It's like there is this huge blob made out of unintelligible sounds that you can't fit into your ears, and your brain just begins to discard it as noise after an hour or two. As for the sounds that get triggered because an enemy has entered a specific state, add a condition to not play the same special state notification if it was played in the last 10 seconds or so. The amount of visual feedback you provide to the player is more than enough here. You can also allow the player to skip story-based notifications with one of those unused buttons on the controller, or allow me to mute them separately in the settings with a different slider or something. I want more options to make the sound bump less overwhelming. There is an option to skip the cutscenes that you've already seen, but those are cutscenes, and they don't have this problem of a million sounds trying to fight over users' attention for the spotlight. The new control scheme is inferior to its predecessor on a lot of levels. Previously, you had more space to see the actual game going on. Now, there's even more clutter on the screen. And another UI-related thing is, I've always had this desire to disable the UI completely and just enjoy the show, but I couldn't. There's this loadout that always limits the player in a game where it's all about user empowerment. Take Sanji's skill tree. You have 3 types of Super Saiyan mode that get replaced by the last 2 you unlocked, leaving you unable to roll back to the mode you enjoyed the most. Or at least I couldn't find a way to do that, which means that this possibility is poorly communicated to an average player. You have a ton of Muso attacks and simple special attacks, out of which you can pick 3 per fight! 4 if you don't want to play using your Super Saiyan mode. You have more types of abilities than slots in your loadout, as a matter of fact. Why would you dump down already easy to understand controls? It is understandable that this loadout way of doing things is probably the first thing that pops into designer's mind, considering the sheer amount of abilities and character progressions that you need to fit in. But it leaves out on a lot of things, and there needs to be a better way to pick the style you want to fight in ad hoc. You have unused keys, let alone key combinations still available for that. I'm just a simpleton when it comes to game design, yes, but in Pirate Warriors 3, for example, you differentiated the type of Musou the player is going to use based on input length. You can allow me to pick the Super Saiyan mode in almost the same fashion, just add the arrow keys that I can use to quickly pick the one I want to use in the middle of the fight. All this pales in comparison with one huge flaw for people like me, the translation. Short version, it is bad. Thanks for watching. But for those of you curious or brave enough to continue, oh boy, do I have a treat. The translation of this game suffers from 3 major issues: superfluous creativity, lack of context, lack of skills. As a result, we get these poor quality translations that are akin to an improvisation or reimagining more so than they are to a meticulously reproduced idea of the author. I will provide you with plenty of examples for each category, starting with superfluous creativity. You know how probably a creator of One Piece, a story that's been in production for almost 25 years, Eiichiro Oda, probably, only probably, knows his way around a word? Well, little Jackie here, as a translator/creator, has a better idea how a character would express himself or herself in this situation. Take this utterance. I suppose it will be perceived as a metaphor with clear message by 99% of English-speaking audience. Do you know how little Johnny thought this should be rendered? Why? There's no dub in this game, so you have no limitations in terms of length, and it's not like it's longer this way too. Are you telling me that an average person won't be able to understand a comparison like that? There's no reason it should be rendered this way. Another thing is, you don't split the utterances. Here you have 3 utterances displayed as a single line, which completely screws up the delivery. I don't care who did it, the devs, the localization team, or someone else. You need to revise the way you treat your subtitles. They are important, you know, especially when, like in this particular case, it's your only way of conveying the message. You can also upgrade your accessibility by allowing the user to increase the size of the subtitles or adding a switchable transparent background for those who have problems perceiving a text displayed without one. Why not literally? Why would you go for a cliché when even original avoids it? You can Google this line in Japanese and it will be the first result returned with a bunch of images. You know what this means? It means that your usual excuse that people don't say stuff like that in English does not apply here because people do not express themselves like that even in Japanese. ここでお別れよ。この街で。ここでお別れよ。この街で。Seriously, do you have a problem with literal translations or something? This little pause she makes, it shows hesitation, or maybe it shows her willingness to end things. Why would you discard it like that? Now, why is it that I don't hear any explosions in the background the second he finishes his line, like... Maybe because the original goes like this? Why would you go for a typical villain rendition here? He is not introducing this thing, he is ordering it to start doing things. This is a poor choice of words. It's not subtle enough. Look, I'm not implying that kun necessarily means friend, but what it shows is that to him, this one of the strongest, highest ranking officials is just a kid, a brat. There's definitely a certain level of familiarity here, and you need to convey this subtleness. Now, I might be wrong here, since I am not a native speaker, but it seems like all of a sudden, the person translating this utterance here decided that, you know what, he's British now.
Cool, blimey. This is a nice bloody surprise. What's this about then?
白ひげ、お前の偽方言について少し話をしたいのだが。こうだったらが。
クソったれ。
なんという失態だ。奴らを逃がしてはならんぞ。なんという失態だ。奴らを逃がしてはならんぞ。
I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like I'm too nitpicky in case of this one, but I do think that the word mistake here should be avoided, since Sengoku refers to the regretful state of things this has come to, more so than his own miscalculation, although there's definitely a glimpse of it here too. On a lexical level, however, Sengoku coins here the term shitai, which is usually a huge fuck-up, and it is precisely what is happening in this scene. A mistake can have many levels, and can be too kind of a word for their current predicament. So both in terms of context and the words being used in the original language here, there is no reason it should be mistake. Though I might be wrong about the range of meanings the word mistake has. For this next piece, I want you to hear this verse. Pay attention to the way he says it. Now let's hear the utterance, shall we? Now this guy here, he is a fan of Luffy. And what he does here is he quotes his idol. But the way he says it, according to the translation that is, it is as if he is uncertain about it. And Luffy is never uncertain about anything. So you need to either convey the intonation or the inversion. Ideally, both. It is also worth noting that he speaks with stereotypical uneducated villager, pop culture-ish style of Japanese. It is based on the northern dialects and is spoken by many characters. For example, Tadokoro Megumi in Shokugeki no Soma speaks the same adapted variant of Tohoku dialects. Therefore, if possible, that is, we should reflect it in our translation as well, which is why I took the liberty to change the spelling and the pronunciation, if we had a dub here, of the word supports to supports, utilizing the so-called I dialect. Alright, enough of this category. Next up is number 2, lack of context. He is alone. He is not trying to talk to anyone. The fact that he is alone is also reinforced by the simple truth that if you take a peek at the map, you'll see there's only one green arrow on it. Sometimes it's just as simple as that, and totally understandable in case of languages like Japanese, where it's hard to differentiate plurals from singulars. This is an utterance specifically targeted at Chopper. His catchphrase is, "I'm not a tanuki, I'm a deer."
タヌキや、お前動物と話せるのか？
そうだ。俺は動物と話ができ。だから俺はタヌキじゃねえよ。
And it adds to the insult Hancock is trying to inflict here. The connotative meaning of tanuki is a cunning old person. That is probably why it is translated as insolent brute here, though I strongly doubt that a cunning old person in any way semantically resembles an insolent brute. They probably did not have enough context here, but the way they treated the word tanuki actually made me doubt whether I should put it here instead of lack of language skills category. Okay, 1. Japanese he is an onomatopoetic expression that could mean two things: heavy breathing or laughing. And they
chose poorly.
And 2, it is probably we, since he's holding Luffy and is running alongside other retreating pirates. Same old, same old. So it's mostly things like that fall into this category. Moving on to the last and the most important section, lack of skills. This is like your standard sketch, where a person who understands only a few words in a sentence just tries to imagine what could it mean instead of actually working on multiple levels and piecing the whole thing together. The word todoita alone is used to describe how something reaches something or someone, be it feelings or parts of the bridge stretching from one end to another, or a sword in this case. But it's not used to describe how a person arrives somewhere. For that, you'd usually use other words, like the word tadoritsuita or kita. Therefore, It's not a context-based mistake at all. It is insufficient proficiency. I wasn't sure where to put this one. I mean, there's clearly a lack of language skills here, but is it just because someone had this unsatisfied creative itch they had to scratch under the pretext of localization or adaptation or whatnot? Or just because the person translating it had no idea how to Google a word hato or ushi? Or is this a ham-fisted attempt at a pun? Like hato as in pigeon and hat as in hat? It's not like Eiichiro Oda is trying to make Luffy sound like an old grandma who can barely hear you and is forced to make conjunctions as to what you're saying. He does wear a hat though. If the same individual who translated this Luffy line had a shot to translate this famous line of Robin into English, would end up with I want to come or I want to go instead of I want to live. Since those are homophones, and Sora Mimi Grandmas, great band name alert, are so good at those as we all know. Alright, enough dilly-dallying, let's get back to work. There is a ton of emotions involved here. First, Garp and Sengoku have a lot of history together. They are close friends, so he is not only angry at Garp because he let his guard down on purpose, he is sad that things turned out this way for his friend. Using they here creates emotional distance that you do not want to be present in a deeply involved utterance. It is also why it is not used in the original as well. The words underestimate and lick are homophones in Japanese. Well, guess what? This character has his lickety-lick all over the place, and this is another pun about him underestimating his opponent, so to say. It is rather hard to convey that, but they try to given the opportunity. This one, however, probably proved too much of a challenge. And I don't mean that in a bad way, though I don't see anything wrong with underestimating, but that's my idea, hey. It's an idiom, you idiots. Oh, I have a lot of thoughts about this one. As far as I understand, evil as a concept cannot backfire on itself. Evil plans, however, can. I have this vague image inside of my head when it comes to the word shisho. You bet I'm holding back not to bake some bread here. I'm not that selfish teacher who stabs and injures his students by sneering at their songs and prose as if they're nothing but a hindrance. You'll never get it. Remember how Thanos said,
But this does put a smile on my face.
Well, there is a high probability you can translate it as shisho. Alright. It's not that high, but you get the idea, the mood that's present here. It's not fun in a positive way, therefore I feel like the use of the word hilarious here, even if it is probably intended to be sarcastic, is inappropriate. And there is one more thing to consider whenever you translate her lines. It is okay to use formal, almost pretentious archaic words because she basically speaks this Japanese pop culture cliche old man figure of speech here, also called virtual professor-elect. by Satoshi Kinsui. It is mostly a male genderlect, and Hancock speaking it, intermixed with female military nobility's pronoun warawa, underlines her homeland's Amazonian culture. Someone needs to refresh his understanding of Japanese grammar here. I'm not gonna go into details, just keep in mind that once he says that, he seals the pathways with ice walls, as you can see on the frame right now. He's talking to the character, he does not refer to himself, and it is also a quote of his from the original. Alright, she is one of the 7 warlords, a group of pirates who answer directly to the world government in exchange for some perks. They do not, in most cases that is, actually care about or respect the government. This is an utterance of Sentomaru, who is affiliated with the government, so there is no way he is confirming the fact that one of the 7 warlords is a warlord. He is surprised that the person who's supposed to be cooperating with him is beating his fucking ass. Oh, this is wrong on so many levels. Arara is not how. It is an interjection expressing mild surprise or even annoyance. Yatte kureru here is an idiomatic expression. In terms of character building, constant use of arara is Aokiji's idiolect. Neither of these important and even basic things are covered in this translation. It is so bad that I laughed for like 5 seconds when I saw it in the game for the first time. Okay, first, it is 3 separate sentences. Get your time code straight and split them. Koshinuke is Japanese for coward. What he says here is super important because he ends up provoking Ace, leading to his untimely death. The bloodline part here is what's important, since it allows us to better understand Akane's view of the world and his brand of justice. Yet for some reason, they avoided it. I have no idea why. Oh my fuck, oh wow, this is just so good. This is some golden shit right here. Wow. So basically, I swear, this is some first month level of Japanese. X to ishoni means with X. And it's not how in some languages, when you achieve a certain level of proficiency, things you thought you knew might have a completely different meaning. No, it stays the same. So there's no other way around it. That way it's translated here is like you get fired levels of bad. This is freaking ridiculous. This does not make any sense. You cannot translate it this way. I can just Google translate this freaking phrase and it would be correct. And it like... No. You know, I can understand if the whole thing, like 90% of it, made sense. It was somewhat good and had some consistency, but no, that's not the case here. It's a perfect demonstration of how not up to the task the person translating this is. Let me just say that in terms of frequency of use, the words kekkon and matrimony are incomparable. I've yet to hear someone say matrimony in everyday setting. And guess what? There is a word with similar formality that's almost never used in Japanese. The word konyin. And Hancock here violates her usual aged man stereotypical figure of speech, probably because she's too shy to even think about it, which is also a part of her character. You can, however, according to her persona of an empress who does not understand relationships between a man and a woman, throw in something like what they call, or anything along those lines.
同格に見るのはやめてもらおうか。手下にしてくれの間違いだろう。もう言うわ。同格に見るのはやめてもらおうか。手下にしてくれの間違いだろう。もう言うわ。
Looks like the person in charge of Crocodile's utterances really wanted to undermine his recruitment operations. You know what I mean?
教頭だと手下にならしてやるぞ。教頭だと手下にならしてやるぞ。
Yeah, just another demonstration of insufficient Japanese proficiency. I am getting too tired.
この悪霊の相撲か。おめえの正義にかけて悪党どもは逃がさねえ。
Smoker says teme, which is usually translated as an obscene word, like bastard, therefore leading many to believe that it's always directed at someone else. This, however, is not true. I'm not sure if that's exactly the reason why here, but Japanese have a habit of speaking about themselves in a third person. And in quite a few cases, just like that, teme changes its meaning to me. It is confusing, but there are noticeable patterns that allow us to differentiate these two game-changing semantic shifts. Will you do it for me? Will you do it for me? Oh my god. Come on, guys. Will you do it for me? I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that someone actually translated it this way. It's an idiomatic expression and it's being translated literally here. That's the root cause. But it's still a pretty huge fuck up if you ask me. Taero means hold on. It's just as simple as that. Zoro is famous for being the first man to invent a strand type of the game, so he got stranded all of the time. On a serious note though, It is an event that triggers when you lead him to the company. 送り届けてくれて is not the same as 一緒に来てくれて. If this were not a lexical, but contextual overlook, it would go like this. Thanks for sending something or someone our way.
It's just... What now?
Man, I'm definitely enjoying this. But, seriously, if you don't know it, just Google it. It is such a cliche that almost every anime fan knows it without learning the language. This brings me to that Persona 5 translation critique that I saw the other day. While some of the mistranslations or editorial errors that were pointed out by the public could be considered an improvement, some clearly could not. And there was this utterance of one of your love interests, Futaba, that went like this.
Mimir, okay? Okay?
Some have said that it is incorrect because people don't speak like that in English, and this person here just goes all out and calls it gibberish. But as a matter of fact, that translation is as true to the original as it could be. It is intended gibberish. A hikikomori recluse like her is having a hard time communicating with people, let alone asking about something intimate. It is meant to be Futaba-like and cute.
Shikaku, okay?
Chikaku, okay, is it's not your standard Japanese, and it was not translated as standard English. The difference between those Luffy's line here and Futaba's is the fact that one is an intended slip of tongue, while another is just a horrendous mistranslation. But I digress. Let's keep going. I don't even... Where do these come from? A mixture of creative itch and a lack of basic knowledge, I suppose? But it's such a weird result, though. There's almost an originality to it? Alright, this time, however, it's not because of the context. It's because the translator did not know that adding domo to a word as a modifier might change it into plural. It's like these poor souls, these poor translators, they were trapped in this crazy slaughterhouse, and there were these torture machines and everything, and they were told like,
I'd like to play a game. I have these 3 words. Translate.
But we need other words in order to translate it properly.
No, you got these 3 words, and I don't give a shit.
There's no coherent progression of thought here. This line and the line from before, they appear within the same segment. How can you come up with this? It's not even an issue of characterization. They literally follow one after another. At this point, I can't even guess why it is this way. I cannot see the logic here. Who is this he? Why all of a sudden it just pops out of nowhere? It just doesn't make any sense. The translator probably had this whole block of sentences to translate, so he could at least grasp what kind of shit is going down. So I have this little habit of mine. Whenever I feel like maybe I'm overdoing it, maybe I'm overthinking it, or maybe I'm just imagining it and it's not even there in the original text, I just ask myself, so what if I just reverse translate the text that I ended up with? With most of these sentences, including this one, it just does not hold up. There's no way, there's no justification for this. So if we do the same thing here with their version of the script, it would sound like this. あの兵器、あっちへ向けろよ. And you don't even need to know Japanese to understand that there's a significant difference between these two. It's like we have an American version of Eiichiro Oda out there on the prowl. Now this one is interesting here. If we consult the dictionary, the word misokonao means to misjudge, to mistake, to overestimate even, or it could literally mean to overlook. So your interpretation of this word could drastically change the resulting translation. The only thing that can save you in this situation, guide you through the slayed word, is the amount of times you've encountered it in different settings. And I can say with utter certainty that in order to convey the kind of meaning they have in English version, Japanese would use another expression, like joukyo wo miyayamatta. Also, based on the contextual nature of this particular line, I'd say that Fujitora here is disappointed that Luffy is holding back just because he is blind. And he is expressing it with the kind of word that's usually used in such a case, misokonao. Therefore, it is far more suitable to render this utterance as I've misjudged you, or I'm disappointed. Other than that, I've yet to read a book or see an anime where misokonao is used with other meanings. Maybe that's just a lack of experience on my part. Feel free to correct me in the comment section. Kaido is known as the strongest man alive. He seeks thrill and is devoured by enormous tedium because there's no challenge big enough for him. He is enraged because he expected to have some fun, but no, there was no fun to be had in an easy fight. Now, let's stop here, shall we? I don't have the manpower to turn this into a 2 to 3 hour long video. Well, actually no. I want to end this on a high note. I am going to show you something special. You see, what I'm talking about is not something that took place specifically in this installment of the OPPR series. The fact is, previous installment was just as bad.
生きて帰れるかわからぬが止めはせぬ行くがよいわらわが許す行き先は自由に選ぶがよい
その程度の力でうぬぼれんじゃねえよアホンダラまあせいぜい暴れてもらおうか俺が首を取るまではな
And here comes the main dish. I am sure you've been waiting for it.
この実力とは控えよ終わらせるぞ新世界あろう控えよ行くぞ小僧ども
Wait, I'll kill you. Just wait a little. I'm about to blow everything away, okay? Does that sound natural to you? At least make it stop to show that you care. It's deceased. Or know your place. Or, if we're getting a little bit of an itch here, bow. Alright. This is not the real deal here. The real deal is this.
放ったれが貴様憲法
あの夏の日
当選
How can you shoot anything with a helmet? Okay, it's One Piece, it's possible actually, but you are about to shoot it, you did not shoot it. Like, what? This does not make any sense. Hanatare ga is his version of idiot. So it is super important in terms of characterization to find that one word that fits him well and just copy paste it all over the place. The good old Soramimi Grandma translation just shines here. Hanatare ga is not the same thing as hanatta ga. Here you have a quite literal translation of hanatta ga. If we translated Dragon Ball using the same technique we have here, we'd end up with something like this. Imagine these huge, quote-like mixtures of special attacks with these out-of-place plain wrong renditions into English being plastered with a gigantic font like that repeatedly in your face every time you use Kizunara Shmuso with certain characters. I fucking loved the fact that something like that exists, and at the same time cried my eyes out because of the fact that something like that exists. Whenever I play a Tecmo Koei game, I get this feeling as if it was made by some serious people in Croatia. Why is that? Sound design. Now, let's take a look at this lady here. Any thoughts? Black-clad? Sexy? Her devil fruit is called the Hanahana no Mi, meaning the flower fruit. So you might be thinking, what a cute ability, when in reality, her abilities look like this. So, yeah. She can replicate and sprout pieces of her body from the surface of any object or living thing. This is the part where you think, what good is that? What if I told you that she's basically a One Punch Man of One Piece universe? Here's a unique footage of her fighting Whitebeard 1v1 style. Now that's what I call a real ball breaker. Not even a man made out of light or magma itself, I fucking hate that red dog bastard, can escape her grasp.
If light cannot escape me, what hope have you?
I've always wanted to use that spell.
And then there's the punctuation that gets copy-pasted from Japanese into English from time to time. I'm talking about things like this, or this, and sometimes they get it just right. As you can see, it is all over the place. There is no sense of consistency, standard. It's like only half of the people followed the editorial guidelines. Let's assume why this is happening. Maybe the workflow is off, if that's the appropriate word for it, and they had no QA whatsoever. But as a matter of fact, they do have a QA department, as we can see right here. And what the hell is this? Maybe it's just that the person or the group who does the translation don't have what it takes. But it's not like I have a proof or anything. I can only judge the resulting product as a consumer. Maybe they were forced into some kind of a ridiculous deadline, so they had to parse almost everything through some kind of an automated translation. In any case, this is...
Who's in charge here?
Hey, Koko no sekininsha wa doko ni imasu ka?
kind of a situation. The way this is rendered into English is simply sad. It's like a portion of the people who translated this thing had almost zero understanding of the source material and of the language they were working with. And it's one thing when it's some unknown indie game. They just had to do with what they had, you know? This is a world-class product sold as a AAA game with one of the highest grossing stories written on the planet. You just can't treat it like that. The weirdest thing is, though, that these people had 2 to 4 localization managers, 4 translators, and a QA department to boot to translate a 15-hour-long game with reference available all over the place. You got One Piece wiki, you got official translations, you got fan-made translations, and you somehow managed to fuck it up so bad I ended up laughing again the way I did during my Pirate Warriors 3 playthrough. I know this is not a popular opinion here, but take Persona 5, a 140 hours plus long game with tons of text, references, and a certain level of limitations, translated by roughly the same amount of people with almost zero mistakes, especially if we consider the overall volume. And I know that there is this ridiculous controversy surrounding Persona 5's translation, but let me tell you something. I've had a chance to play Persona 3 and a little bit of Persona 4. I ended up switching to Japanese when I realized that it has the same symptoms going on with this got an itch up my ass translation, and I'm so glad that Persona 5 did not follow their suit. Let me get this clear first. Persona 3 is a high quality localization. The problem with that is the fact that they from time to time got too liberal with their additions under the pretext of characterization to the point where it stops being true to the original. When in Persona 3, your student council president just starts dropping French innuendos just like that, I just had to check the source material for at least a hint of a character like that in her demeanor. And I understood their motivation actually. In the source language, she sometimes says things like "excellento," which do sound quirky to an average Japanese person. So, in order to recreate this feeling in their rendition, they decided to use French. It made sense to a certain extent. The problem is that they started adding these French fries even in places where they were not in the original script, and instead of their original intent to characterize lines of Mitsuru, they ended up misrepresenting her as a pretentious character sometimes. And she's anything but that. Most of the time, it's just your run-of-the-mill polite Japanese. I mean, at some point, I even started thinking like, are you telling me that every single polite person in America would throw random French phrases at me? And then, as I progressed through the game, I noticed one too many times that things are quite not what they are in the source language. Though there is a huge difference between the way Persona 3 and Pirate Warriors were treated. In Pirate Warriors, I couldn't even retrace the reason why it is the way it is. In Persona 3, however, I always understood their thought process, even if sometimes I completely disagreed with the conclusion they arrived at. I cannot believe I'm releasing this abomination. Here comes the part where I drop 2 jokes that couldn't find the right spot in my script. So you pun haters better scram this instant before I hurt you with my punches. You know how the last boss is the guy named Marshall D. Teach. Well, when I kicked his ass, I sure did teach him a lesson. You remember that girl from Sanji's arc that had this ability to literally edit someone's memories? Am I the only one who gets this weird urge to all of a sudden praise England whenever I see her? I've asked 10,000 of my subordinates, subscribordinates if you will, to like this video. So you got no chance, YouTube. I'm taking over. In conclusion, Sanji is the real robber man out there. I mean, look at those raindrops bouncing off of him.
3つ